Happy race week and welcome into another edition of Gold and Black Radio. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. I don't know how many of you actually celebrate that. I'm here in Indianapolis where a lot of people are celebrating that. And obviously people outside of Indianapolis are celebrating that. But here in the Purdue world, things are slowing down, not speeding up, which is a good thing, I think, ultimately. So everybody can kind of catch their breath here as the news cycle has slowed down for both Purdue basketball and football. But after an all-Tom edition last week, we've got an all Brian edition on tap for you this week as we get the latest from Brian Neubert. But first, a shout out to our great Gold and Black sponsors, including Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics, and the official credit card for Purdue fans, Boiler Up. East End Grill and Ripple and Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. The Whitaker Inn. This Midwestern oasis is perfect for a relaxing staycation or a weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn. Sand Valley Resort, where tee times for the 2025 golf season are now available. Using their online booking platform, it's easier than ever to find availability and experience golf as it was meant to be. Conveniently located in the breathtaking dunes of central Wisconsin, Sand Valley offers a collection of award-winning courses designed by world-renowned architects that are suitable for all skill levels. Visit sandvalley.com and book your tee times today. And finally, the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research, which has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Purdue brings together world-class Boilermaker scientists from across the university, conducting cutting-edge research that uncovers new ways to prevent, diagnose, and treat cancer. With your support, cancer research saves lives. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Let's go ahead and welcome on goldenblack.com columnist and basketball knower Brian Neubert, and it's an all Brian Neubert edition of Gold and Black, which certainly will please the masses, Brian, that it's just you and only you. I found this interesting. So I wanted to hop into the Brian Neubert basketball classroom here because I think rim protection and shot blocking, just like on a surface level, sort of get lumped in as one and the same. But with just actual rim protection, there are nuances there that involve players who don't block shots at all. And I wanted you to kind of dive into that because I thought your response in the mailbag at goldenblack.com a few days ago was interesting and worth repeating on the podcast. Just, you know, the kind of the subtle and not so subtle differences of just saying, hey, we have a shot blocker and we can block shots, to, hey, we can protect the rim, because those two things aren't totally the same thing.
Yeah, like obviously shot blocking speaks for itself. It's having somebody at the rim who is there to block the shot or deter the shot or affect the shot, whatever it may be. But rim protection is on everybody. It's about keeping people out of the paint, keeping people away from the rim. You don't have to protect the rim if nobody can get to the rim. So that's, I think those two things do kind of get conflated in the court of public opinion and whatnot. But you look at what Purdue had to do last year. They didn't have a shot blocker. They didn't have size. So they had to build their, and this isn't really anything new. Purdue's, part of the reason Zach Edey didn't get in foul trouble all that much was because Purdue systematically protected him. They helped against the dribble. That's kind of what their defense has been based on the last few years. But keeping the ball away from the rim softens the need to protect the rim. And I think that's something that really has come to the forefront in the last couple of years, especially last year when Purdue just had to keep people out of the paint. And when they did, they were great. And when they couldn't, they were bad. And their lack of size really showed up. But it's kind of a transformational deal right now for Purdue because you get Oscar Clough, who's a capable shot blocker, but perhaps not his defining characteristic. You get Daniel Jacobson back from injury, assuming he's back to what you thought he would be at this stage of his career. You have a potentially elite shot blocker there, but you also have this size on the defensive glass, and that's another part of rim protection too, is clearing the defensive rebounds, because it's those offensive rebounds that really put you in a vulnerable spot at the rim defensively. So once again, you don't have to protect the rim if the opponent doesn't have the ball at the rim. So whether that's stopping the dribble, whether that's keeping people out of transition, whether that's clearing defensive rebounds at a higher rate than Purdue could last year without having to sell out your whole defense to do it. Purdue had to really overachieve on the glass last year, and that probably in some way, shape, or form affected their ability to get in transition offense, maybe affected at times their ability to get into transition defense. All this stuff's connected, and it starts with the shot going up, whether it's deterring the shot, affecting the shot, whatever it may be. But then getting the rebound. Good offense starts with a defensive rebound, and good defense ends with a defensive rebound. And that's where Purdue is really, really kind of set up now to be in a much different place than it was a year ago, because the rim protection and the shot blocking is one part of all this, but the defensive rebounding is an even bigger part now. So all that stuff is kind of connected to one another from a defensive perspective, but also an offensive perspective. So that's kind of a layer of the game that I think we're going to be talking a lot about here in the next 12 months.
Yeah, and to call size an Achilles heel actually does a disservice to Achilles heel. It was almost more serious. We need to find a
Yes.
term more serious than Achilles heel for last year. But you get all this size now, and the size box is checked for Purdue. But there are many that are concerned with the athleticism box now, because you subtract Colvin and Heidi from that equation, which we've talked about those guys individually. But just kind of looking at that overall, some people treating it like a robbing Peter to pay Paul type thing, but how concerned are you with the athleticism level when Purdue is matching up against teams, say, like what Auburn put on the floor last year?
In terms of the best way we can phrase an absolute emergency situation, I've always liked 4 alarm fire. I try to do the DEF CON thing periodically, but then I can't remember which DEF CON is
I'm the same way.
the
Yeah.
worst. Like
Is it
I don't
5?
want
Is
to
it 1?
I don't want to accidentally say the most mild DEF CON when I mean the
Yeah.
most acute DEF CON, and then I get confused because I start thinking of FranCon and the Fran McCaffrey meme. But no, I think that um, I don't remember your question. I'm sorry.
The athleticism versus the
Yeah.
size. Like
Okay.
we
Yeah.
know that size is solved now, but are you concerned with where they are athletically?
Well, what did you get out of athleticism last year? I think, with all due respect to Camden Heidi and Miles Coleman, when they played with energy and they used their athleticism, it mattered. It didn't show up as consistently as you would have liked it to. Purdue will certainly have fewer viral dunks next season, but viral dunks are worth the same amount of points as a pull-up jumper by Braden Smith, or a pull-up jumper by Fletcher Lawyer, or a transition basket by Jakari Harris. And it's uh, athleticism gets unlocked by energy, and I think sometimes that was missing. I think that what Camden Heidi and Miles Colvin needed to be able to do was use their athleticism on the glass even more than they did. That they had some moments. Miles Colvin won the Mississippi game with a putback. I mean, we shouldn't overlook that. Camden Heidi toward the end of the year had some really nice rebounding games. Had he done that in December and January, he would have started at the 4 all year long. I think with those guys too is when people had to close out on them, if they could have put the ball on the deck a little bit more effectively and gotten all the way to the basket, I think their athleticism would have showed up a little bit more. That was not something really that Purdue had. And I think now it could be in a better spot to do that. I just don't know how much the athleticism really mattered. Now, Miles Colvin obviously had some ups and downs all season long, but he did at times do a pretty good job guarding the ball, in part due to his athleticism, but more so due to his size. Taking him out of that mix is, potentially a loss, but it also affords more minutes for CJ Cox and Jakari Harris. And I think that sometimes when you subtract a player from a crowded mix, it empowers the others even more. I keep going back to many years ago. Purdue was playing Kendall Stevens, Dakota Mathias, and Ryan Klein, a relatively even minute share at the same position. And I don't think that worked out very well for any of them. But when Kendall Stevens left the team in the middle of the season, or whatever stage of the season that was, all of a sudden thereafter, Dakota Mathias and Ryan Klein started playing really well. Part of that was just, having more minutes, being able to get in the rhythm of games more. And I think that, sometimes losing a guy sucks, but it's not the worst thing in the world for those guys coming back too. So I think the added opportunities, that come for some of the returning guys that come from some of these departures, even if they take some really high-end athleticism with them, can be a net gain. I think Purdue, and I say this very carefully because I don't want to make it sound like the guys who left weren't good players, because they were. Would Purdue like to have had those guys back? Of course. But I think Purdue is a much better, much more complete team on paper right now than it would have been at the end of last season, projecting everybody to come back into this year. So I think Purdue really upgraded itself this spring. It lost some athleticism, yes, but I think the net gain across the board is really considerable.
Yeah, and it's hard to argue against that just with the influx of talent that we saw and fixing some of those areas that were the Achilles heels. Shifting now from the roster to the schedule, since the last time we spoke, I believe everything got set. And we know why Matt Painter schedules the way that he does, but I want to get the Brian take on this. On paper, with where we sit today, would you say that Purdue's non-con schedule is over challenging, under challenging, or just challenging enough, knowing that how these teams look in November, December could change drastically from how they look right now on May 20th?
Using the porridge analogy, I think it's just right. I
Okay.
think that you schedule to the team you're going to have. I don't know if Purdue's necessarily doing that. I think they're just playing the world every year. And but historically, your approach has been you schedule to the team you expect to have. So if you expect to be great, you recruit an elite schedule to try to get a 1 seed and to try to, obviously run through the Big Ten with the improvement that should come from your non-conference season. Matt Painter's also tried to get a bunch of different styles in non-conference play for his team to be prepared for anything, and it's been hard to argue with that approach because it has really, really um, taken this program to kind of another level. One of many things that have done that, but I think I think Purdue is, obviously one of the best teams in the country, presumed to be one of the best teams in the country. Purdue, when it started putting this schedule together, it probably didn't know it was going to have Oscar Clough. It didn't know it was going to have Omer Mayer. Um, it probably scheduled, assuming all of its upperclassmen, all of its All-America candidates would be back, and it obviously ended up with a great schedule. A lot of it was scheduled last year. The Auburn visit to Indianapolis this year is a return for that one. For Purdue going to Birmingham last year, Purdue going to Alabama this year is a return for Alabama coming here this year, which Nate Oates didn't have to do. He deserves credit for that too. Marquette is a return game. Them coming to Mackey Arena. The Iowa State series starts. Purdue will go there next year with a team that loses a lot of guys. So that's a pretty bold thing Matt Painter is willing to do next year. But no, it's just right. I think Texas Tech is firmed up. We reported a while back that they were a possibility for Baha Mar in the the Bahamas, Virgin Islands, Bahamas, whatever. I think that it is a really high-end schedule. You've got a bunch of the best teams in the country. You go to that event in the Bahamas, JT Toppin's going to be there. Braden Smith's going to be there. If PJ Haggerty somehow comes back to Memphis, I wouldn't expect that to happen. But if he does, you've got 3 returning All-Americans in the same building. But that's a big if on PJ Haggerty. But I think you've got a bunch of top 25 teams, a couple of top 10 teams, but also some really high-end athleticism on some of these teams, a really great defensive program in Auburn, a really great offensive program in Alabama, a great defensive program in Texas Tech, a high-pressure system in Marquette. Iowa State's obviously been great in a lot of different ways, the way they guard, things like that. So you have a great schedule, but you also have a great breadth of experience coming your way, which Purdue, shouldn't necessarily need at this point because you have so many guys coming back who've been through so much. But at the same time, you do have new guys, and you do have to still build that resume, and you still have to get that 1 seed everybody thinks that, Purdue is probably going to be in line to get. And he's just going to keep doing it this way. They expose themselves to losing games, which in the case of Matt Painter, in the case of Nate Oates, in the case of Shaka Smart, some other guys, you have to be really comfortable in your own skin. You have to have ultimate job security to be willing to do that, because a lot of programs just schedule wins, pat themselves on their back, and then things get real when they get to conference play. And then, they complain at the end of the year when they're on the bubble. Purdue doesn't do it that way. And Purdue deserves a lot of credit for doing it that way. And it has paid major dividends. And Matt Painter's been at the forefront of trying to get everybody in the Big Ten to kind of do it this way. It's easier said than done, because they're coaches that need wins to keep their fans off their whats. There are teams that just have a hard time scheduling these teams. But Purdue's got enough of a national brand now. They've got enough reputation in the marketplace. They've got enough TV appeal where these things come together. They're not easy to do, but Purdue, one way or another, has gotten some big-time series together here, and is really benefiting from it all across the program.
Yeah, I love the exhibition at Rupp, and
Great. Awesome.
I've always loved the Iowa State. I think, not that they're a direct peer, but I think there's a lot of connective tissue there. They're a much better program with a much better history and a fantastic venue than casual fans or non-fans realize. And so I was thrilled to see that get added as well. So I'm excited for it, because, like, speaking from, not even like a media standpoint, but just as a basketball enjoyer, these are the games that I want to see, not Purdue play, I don't know, like Murray State or, whatever else, Evansville, who I know is on the schedule, but, don't play Evansville 5 times. You can play Evansville once, just don't do it 5 times. And that's what a lot of teams, to each their own, I guess. That's what they choose to do. Last thing here, Brian. Sorry, go ahead.
One of the points, Mike, and kudos to Purdue, the administration too, because a lot of schools might say, hey, we don't want to foot the bill for you to go to Arkansas, or you to go to Creighton, or you to go to Kentucky. We need that extra exhibition game. We want that revenue. You'd want to max out those home games the best you could, but Purdue's pretty good about having the green light to do whatever it wants to do to kind of build its program, to make its teams better, and not worry about that bottom line. There was a time where, Purdue had to have whatever it was, 19 games on its season ticket package, and that included exhibitions. When the closed scrimmages, started becoming a thing, that became a little bit of a, skipping out on that second exhibition game became a little bit of a something to consider. But that's not really, as far as I know, really a deterrent anymore for Purdue being able to schedule however it wants to schedule. So that, the athletic department deserves some credit for that as well, for green lighting all that stuff.
Yeah, Creighton and UK are going to prepare you a little bit better than, Athletes in Action or whatever those old exhibitions remember used to be.
The Harlem Globetrotters.
From way back in the day when those used to happen. Let's get your thoughts before we wrap on the 2026 class and where Purdue stands for some of those guys right now. I know you've been on the road and watching some of them in action, but looking to add to that group, and they've been aggressive in doing so. And so far, they have one on board, and Luke Ertl, who I know a lot of people are really high on, and he's been rapidly kind of rising up the ranks. But what's the outlook with where we stand today as far as next year's class is concerned, Brian?
Yeah, it obviously has to be a big class because you lose 6 seniors. I think ultimately at some point the portal comes into the picture here, because when you lose 6 guys, you really want to stagger that stuff. You lose so many players, you're inevitably going to have some holes to fill in terms of immediate contributors. So I think Purdue's going to have to bring in some transfers in this class, maybe more than one. We'll kind of see how it goes, but it is a big class, and it's a really important class because of what it comes in place of. And I don't think you're going to look at this class and say there needs to be a Braden Smith and a Fletcher Lawyer and a Traycoff Moren in it who are going to come in and be awesome right away. But Purdue's got to get some freshmen who can play right away. And then they have to take those numbers and they have to split them up a bit. Some transfers to have some upperclassmen, some guys who will redshirt maybe to break up the numbers some and to develop, obviously. But right now, Purdue's got Luke Ertl, who was your classic Purdue under the radar guy a year ago at this time, a scrappy little gym rat, as we like to call him. Last year, a classic Purdue fit, sort of under the radar guy, and now suddenly he's he's completely blowing up this spring and summer, and everybody is like, Purdue did it again, that kind of thing. Like, Purdue recruits good players. People see Purdue getting a good player and they act surprised. Purdue recruits good players. These guys know what they're doing. But Luke Ertl doesn't pass every look test button there is out there, but he's a really good player. He's really smart. He's really tough. He's an elite competitor. But right now, too, he's also looking like Nigel Pack on offense. I mean, he's a big time jump shooter. He's a big time scorer. He's got a will to him to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it. And I think he's going to be a nice combo guard type of piece for Purdue moving forward. A great cultural fit, a great competitive fit, and just another classic Purdue guy. And Purdue's done a great job getting Purdue guys and getting Purdue guys early over the years. And this is just the latest example. Trey Thompson is the second guy. The absolute number one priority, regardless of class, I think right now for Purdue moving forward, with Ertl already on board. Thompson's your classic kind of stretch four. A big time shooter. He's probably 6'6", 6'7", but he's an above the rim athlete. He's got a great energy to him. He can dribble. He can pass. He can rebound. He can really get in the open floor and run. Just a really good offensive player, a really, really mismatch-oriented type of player. Purdue saw it right away before everybody else. Stop me if you've heard this one before. They offered him. He's been their absolute priority ever since then, and now it was inevitable that when people actually started paying attention, things were going to change for him a little bit. He was offered by Tennessee long ago. That was probably Purdue just forcing Tennessee's hand. Tennessee did the bare minimum just to stay in there. But it's been Purdue, Xavier, Butler, Tennessee, Virginia Tech. The kid has been grossly under-recruited to this point. Purdue has gotten him very close to committing a couple times, I believe. But now he played out this past weekend. UConn just offered him. How often does UConn come to the treed forests of Greenville, Tennessee to recruit a player? Indiana offered him. Iowa offered him. Stanford offered him. There's more to come. I'd imagine he'll take some visits. Purdue's going to be there. They've built a great relationship with him. The kid, and you only take this for what it's worth at this point, but the kid talks like he's already part of the program. He loves Purdue. He loves Matt Painter. He loves Paul Lusk. He sees the fit. I think he appreciates the loyalty they've shown him, the effort they've put in on him. And I think ultimately Purdue is where he ends up. It's just a matter of this was always going to happen. Recruits aren't obligated to commit on anyone's time frame but their own. I'm sure Purdue would have liked this wrapped up weeks ago, if not months ago. But they're just going to have to keep showing up, keep putting in the effort, keep strengthening the relationship and things like that. And, they'll hope they get their guy. I think Purdue has graduated out of the risk of getting friend zoned on guys like this, where it's like, we love you, but this team just got involved, and how can we pass up this brand? That type of thing. Mm-hmm. That 10 years ago, that is something that could have happened to Purdue. I think that they've graduated out of that. So I think when the Michigan States come in at the last second, in this case, when the UConns, kind of come in relatively late in the process, I think Purdue's relatively insulated from that nowadays. Outside of that, Purdue needs size in the 2026 class. They need another guard. They need a little of everything. You lose 6 guys here. So Jamin Sondrop from Utah is going to be one of their top priorities, I think, as a post player. He's kind of like a Travion Williams type of center. He's hurt right now, so he didn't play this past weekend. Junior County, also from Utah, is a combo guard. They're recruiting a big, versatile, substantive, competitive guard who can do a lot of different things. I'm just going to kind of roar through this as fast as I can. I could talk about this stuff for hours, which no one wants to hear. Outside of that,
you'd be surprised. Well, I think you'd be surprised how many people want to hear about it.
I think also the picture now, right to this day, of who Purdue's in on 2026, could look very different in a couple weeks, because I think there's some guys Purdue offered early that it's got to kind of reassess. I think there's some guys they'll find here in May, June, and July that ultimately will end up becoming real priorities for them. So we'll kind of see how things go. The portal is going to come into play at some point, so this isn't all an incomplete picture as of this moment. I think Purdue's going to, keep trying to recruit internationally too, and that's going to inevitably be a blind spot for my coverage, because I'm not all that connected in Eastern Europe. So I think Purdue's in a really good place in recruiting. I think they're way out ahead on a lot of people. I think the money's competitive. I think that, a lot, as we've talked about, a lot of the stuff that's changed in college basketball recruiting right now has worked in Purdue's favor in a really backward kind of way. I think Purdue's still about relationships, still about fit. And I think that they're going to set themselves apart a little bit. Well, a lot of people are out there talking about money when they run the risk of this all changing here in a couple months when the House settlement goes through, if this enforcement stuff actually is effective. Now, this will go back to old school cheating. There's no way around that. So the money programs are still going to figure it out one way or another. But I think Purdue now, it goes from, we're not going to pay you, we can't pay you anything, we're not going to cheat. So we're going to lose this kid, this kid, this kid, and this kid because they want money, to now all of a sudden you come to Purdue, you have the best relationship with our coaches, their coaches. It's the best fit. We have assessed you, very, very closely. Here's why we think you're good here. And by the way, you're going to make a couple $100,000 a year. And if you're the player that we think you are, if you turn into Braden Smith and you're an All-American, you're going to get paid every bit as much as you would at, this place, this place, this place, and this place. The programs you think that would have the most money. You look at what this has done for retention. You're able to keep Zach Edey his senior year. You're able to keep Braden Smith his senior year. That's where the money piece of it has really mattered for Purdue in the NIL era. But now that the revenue sharing part of it is in this too, and Purdue has made its full allotment to the $20.5 million, whatever it is, I think, Purdue's set up to be really good here. Money is not a problem for Purdue when money is now a big part of a game it used to not be part of. So that's kind of where things stand. And I'm running out of breath because I just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. So that's what I got.
I wanted to hear more about your take on some Eastern European, some Polish guys that are working out this summer, but that's okay.
If I got to
leave that for a different podcast.
If they're going to do this and I have to start spelling names like the Illinois guys do.
Oh, God. Those poor guys.
I'm going to have a file on my computer of all the names pre-typed out. I'm just going to have to open Apple copy and then open Apple paste. And it's,
we need to, given your history with them, we need to put that out on social media. Brian Neubert expresses sorrow for friends at Illinois. Right? Would that mend some of the bridge? Isn't there some person that still comes after you over there?
I like the Illinois media. For the most part, it's some of the trolls that, and one troll in particular whose name shall not be spoken ever again for fear of Beetlejuice showing up.
Have to banish them to Poland the next time, maybe, that we get the opportunity. Brian, appreciate it as always, my man. And we'll talk again soon. We'll see if there are more developments. Feels like there always are when it comes to recruiting as we head into the summer months here, but appreciate your time as always.
Yeah, no problem, Derek. Thanks, man.
That's our pal, Brian Neubert. And that is our show, Gold & Black Radio Tuesday edition. Thanks so much for joining us. And thank you to our great sponsors like Purdue Federal Credit Union, the official credit card for Purdue fans. East End Grill and Ripple & Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette. The Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. Sand Valley Resort, tee times for the 2025 golf season at Sand Valley are now available. All you have to do is head to sandvalley.com and book those tee times today. And finally, the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research, which has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And of course, you can leave a positive review for all of our shows right here on Golden Black Radio, on the Golden Black Radio channel, on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever you're using. We would really appreciate that. And check this offer out again for our Golden Black Radio listeners. If you use PU1, the letter U, at checkout when purchasing a monthly subscription to goldenblack.com, if you're not already a subscriber, which I can't imagine if you're still listening to this that you're not, because you get all the best basketball and football coverage for the Golden Black for sure at goldenblack.com. You get 2 months for $1. 2 months for $1, goldenblack.com. Subscribe to the goldenblack.com channels as well on, like I mentioned, the Apple Podcasts, all of our podcast channels, but YouTube too. I don't want to forget about some of the great content that we're putting out on the YouTube platform. Go ahead and search us on there and subscribe and follow and check out our content there. And enable alerts as well. New highlights and videos are uploaded regularly, just like the new podcasts right here on Golden Black Radio. But appreciate you joining us. Have a terrific holiday weekend, and we will see you next time right here on Golden Black Radio.